Now Pettersson the blast. Oh, that hit Provo. Diving save. Hart as he flashes across. Briere sets up Carl. Side of the net. Deflected. Score! Briere moving in. Stops. Cuts to the middle. Still has a shot. Score! Here's Hughes giving it across. Oh, what a save! Save by Maher. Short-handed mid. He scores! Up top, cruising is Provorov. He scores! Ivan Provorov!
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Flyer to Podcast. I'm your host, Amedeo and Grassia, along with my partner, Chris Maher. As always, we are live streaming on the Painted Lines, TTP Sports, and Flyers Fan Mania 93. And for people who cannot tune into the podcast, if you're not even here, just can't tune into it, you're late, it'll always be up on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts at. And hopefully we don't get cut off, because I know StreamYard has been acting up today, especially since Facebook and Instagram are down. For some reason, I don't know why StreamYard's down collectively. According to their Twitter, it's like saying, oh, we're dealing with this with a bunch of other websites. So hopefully we don't get kicked off the live stream eventually. But hey, we're here. We're going to fight through it, as Chris is also fighting through his internet connections, apparently. I feel like everything with Facebook and Instagram is connected to Chris's Wi-Fi, because apparently they go down, his Wi-Fi is down. So
yeah,
we're going to try to fight through it.
Yeah, it has not been fun today with the Wi-Fi issues that I've had, but we're going to be back, and hopefully we can get through this smoothly.
Yeah, hopefully with everything, because your voice sounds fine, but the the camera sometimes doesn't work. But hey, we go for everything. Hey, if you want to, it doesn't matter to me. I get to see your beautiful mug with the Flyer, the Flyers press pass, so that always works out. So, getting into today's discussion on the Flyer podcast, so we have some Flyers preseason games to go over. The Flyers are going to be playing the Boston Bruins tonight as well at the Wells Fargo Center at 7:00. So there's stuff to talk about there. And then we also, this is the thing that's probably going to get brought up eventually with the Robin Lehner comments in regards to Alain Vigneault. That's eventually going to get talked about as well as we move forward with this episode. So we're going to get talking about the preseason, talking about training camp as it always progresses towards the regular season, because Chris, you always have some interesting things to say about training camp and to get your opinions on everything. So looking at the Flyers' schedule so far from their past preseason games, the Flyers, their first preseason game was on the 28th of September against the New York Islanders. They lost in overtime by a score of 3-2. Their next game was on the road in Boston on the 30th. They lost 4-2 in regulation. And their last, or previous, or latest, you can say, preseason game was this past Saturday the 2nd against the Washington Capitals. The Flyers won 3-1. And in those previous two preseason games against the Capitals and the Bruins, the Flyers and both of those teams elected to play shootouts regardless of the outcome, and the Flyers lost both of those shootouts. So right back into the standard of things. Yeah. So Chris, I guess your thoughts on training camp as it progresses since you've been going there recently, and also your thoughts on the previous preseason games as we get into tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, overall, I feel like camp was good. I felt like there was a good pace to it. It was a lot of the same stuff. As the drills and everything were the same. They pretty much kept the lines the same. Group A was the roster that played in the first preseason game against the Islanders. That was Team Orange in the scrimmage. So it was Group A, Team Orange. That was Giroux, Couturier connecting line, kept all that together. And then Group B was the roster that was in Boston. Obviously, it's not too much of an offensive lineup. You have your second line of Farabee, which is, and Frost, JR, but besides that, that was pretty much about it. And I know a lot of people were kind of hard on Jones after that game. And, there's Jones from that game, and there's Jones from the game against Saturday. It's, the here and here. So I personally didn't think Jones played too bad against Boston. Obviously, the one goal, he definitely should have had back the Carlo goal, that third goal there in the first. The other two, I thought he had absolutely no chance on. I thought it was just bad PK by the Flyers and things like that. My guess would be tonight that Carter Hart probably plays the full game. That and Jones played the full game. But we'll see how that goes. I know the lines and stuff, they've been the same for a while. There's going to be different lineup tonight because obviously no Giroux and Braun, they had maintenance days. Hopefully that's nothing too crazy with an injury. I know Saturday's game was more physical, and Amedeo, you could agree with that as you were in attendance. But bro, I feel like, as camp went on, the lines, it felt like started to get more, I guess you could say they gelled a lot well together. If that really even made sense, with the way I worded that, but because I can't talk English. But anyway, I think just the way that AV's kind of kept the lines together, and we've seen that Lindblom, Broussard, Atkinson line. That line has looked really good, really since the first day of camp, I thought, or at least the day that I was there, which really was the second day of camp for the team. But overall, I feel like camp's been good for the Flyers, and there's been a lot of good things. I've really liked the Pro Rob Ellis pairing. I think all the defense has been pretty fine, honestly. I think Ristolainen has shown a lot of good things. He's been physical. He's made some pretty good plays, but I feel like a lot of Flyers fans and some other Flyers people are going to be looking at Ristolainen, and they're going to be like, every time he makes a bad play, they're going to comment on it. And every time that he makes a good play, they're going to make it like it's the best player in the world. So I'm going to look at it like this. I just want Ristolainen to play solid hockey. That's all I'm caring about. You know what I mean? If he can go out there, make some plays, play good, solid defense, be physical, then that's fine. But for the most part, I'm not necessarily looking for anything crazy from him. I've really liked Yandel and Braun together. I think they've been a pretty solid pairing. Yandel in the first unit power play has actually look good, which is something to keep an eye on. The PKs look good, but they've taken too many penalties, so you don't want to keep taking penalties. I think Boston had 6 or 7 power plays in that game. So hopefully they don't take as many. I know Boston has a pretty weak lineup tonight compared to the Flyers' 2 lines. Another thing to keep an eye on is Elie Noyer. He's going to be centering the third line with JVR and Aubrey Coupel. I talked with him on Friday at practice, and he said he looked good. He's excited. He doesn't have to worry about the injury anymore, so which is good. And now that he's getting a shot, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts High Valley. I know I'm kind of going on a rant here, but I have a feeling he's probably going to start in High Valley, but overall, yeah. I mean, I think tonight's going to be a pretty solid game. I'm excited to see some of these guys. And I think overall for the Flyers, if these next handful of games get tonight, tomorrow, and then Friday, I'd have to think Friday is going to be the closest thing we see the full lineup. It's probably going to be the same roster as the game on Saturday. It's just Hart's going to start the game. That would probably be my guess. So we'll see what happens. But overall, Amedeo, what are you thinking?
Yeah, just going back to, I'm going to bring back up the thoughts on the Jones and the Ristolainens, with the especially on that Thursday game against Boston, because which goal was it that was it on the penalty kill where everyone was like stuck in one corner, and then that was the Carlo goal where he was just left wide open, and that's the goal that Jones allowed. It felt like, because Ristolainen
goal, the first one.
Okay, it was the Marchand goal because
and then Hall made like the diving pass. Dude, that was just a great play. But Ristolainen did jump there. That's another thing I wanted to mention with Risto is, like, if he makes a bad play like that, everybody's going to point it out. But if he makes a good play, everybody's going to be like, oh, my God, you know what I mean? So I think if he just literally comes in and plays solid, that's all I could ask for. If he can literally play and show that he's, how tall is Ristolainen? 6'5"?
At least.
If he can show that he's 6'5", then I'm perfectly okay with that, because guys like Myers did not do that last year. That was one of the reasons why the Flyers struggled.
Yeah, that's what Ristolainen is. It's going to be the definition of his entire season. He makes one play. Everyone on, the social media verse is going to just unleash all hell on him with, the weather maps and everything like that in regards to analytics. Oh, this is what we told you. This is what Ristolainen has always been. He makes one mistake, everyone's going to drill him. That's basically what it's going to be. And if he does the positive things, just do simple hockey. That's all it is. I'm not going to bash Ristolainen for making one mistake. People are going to make mistakes. He's human, but that's just his track record at this point, since he was with Buffalo for so long. And he's going to, he doesn't care what people say. He's just going to want to be that defenseman that he's hard to play against. And he proved that against the Capitals on Saturday with a couple of big hits during the game, and the fans love that. So he's going to have those games throughout the year. He's not going to be this perfect defenseman. No one is, but he's going to have his good games. He's going to have his bad games. That's what the type of defenseman he's been, and that's probably what he's going to be the entire season. And for Martin Jones, he's been on a decline for the past couple of seasons when playing for San Jose, especially since the team wasn't really that good for the past couple of years too. But yeah, you could definitely see some decline in Jones's game over the past couple of years. And of course, people in his first preseason game start to overreact when he allows in a bad goal. But then people, you got to handle, it's the first preseason game he's playing. He's going to be rusty. He's got to get the rust off. And then people are going to accolade it to, oh, he played good in his second preseason game. Oh, that's just the Capitals. They didn't really dress anyone on the roster. That's good enough.
Yeah.
So that's why he had such a good game. People, just give him a chance. Like, I know you're not I'm not high on Jones either, but if he can just be a solid backup, get you at least a .905 save percentage, I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. I know Elliott was probably the better choice, but Elliott, you don't want to run the risk of him getting injured and then, having to rely on him just in case what if Hart gets injured. You don't want to rely on Elliott that much, because if you play Elliott for too long of a stretch, he's eventually going to wear down. Elliott's more of a goaltender that's better in the short stints, not the longer stints. So that's the main reason there. So just give Jones a chance. If he is what he is at this point, he's a backup goaltender.
And I didn't mean to cut you off, but one thing I will say is that he played a period and a half in a Flyers uniform, and I don't think he saw a shot in that second period. And then Sandstrom came in. So I'm really not going to sit here and look at, pretty much 20 minutes of the 30 he played and the 3 goals that he gave up, where 2 of them really weren't his fault. And, it's probably the first game he's played in months. So I'm just really not looking for anything to be too I'm just not trying to be too hard on him. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a lot of those guys, like, that was Group B's first game in a while. It's not really an offensive group. A lot of those guys, like your regulars, like Lawton, JVR. Obviously, Farabee had 2 goals, which was great to see. But again, like, I just don't necessarily feel like I'm going to sit here and overanalyze too much from the preseason, because it's supposed to be like this.
Yeah, and also going towards the like talking about some of the lines that you were discussing, like especially on that Thursday game against Boston, and then especially the line that played against the Capitals. That line combination of Thompson, Lawton, and Aube-Kubel I've actually really liked. And I've liked what they showcased. They're just a gritty line. They're going to grind, and they're just going to – and also, even though it is preseason, Thompson looks like he has an extra jump, if you know what I mean. He looks like he has an extra jump of speed for some reason.
He looks like he's been skating well. Like, his skating has looked good.
And especially having them on the penalty kill with Lawton and Thompson. And then it's also funny, too, because when you're looking at the penalty kills, since the Flyers have had so many penalties taken against them, like I guess you get to see the many rotations that Mike Yeo has been putting out there. So, like, maybe one shift you'll see Lawton and Thompson, one shift you'll see Atkinson and Farabee, one shift you can see Couturier and Lawton, another you could see Thompson and Cam Atkinson. So I feel like they're testing like these interchangeable like pairings, and I kind of do like that. It maybe if that's something they do during the regular season, I'm not entirely sure, but if they can, that can maybe lead to some unpredictability with the penalty kill, and maybe keep guys more fresh.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It sucks now with Hayes being out, because you would have been able to experiment more in that area. But for right now, I done Giroux with Atkinson. They've done obviously Giroux with Couturier, and Couturier with Atkinson too. So that's probably the main setup you'll see as the season rolls on. Is that's probably your 2 best forward penalty killers there, and obviously Giroux in any mix is good too. So I'm perfectly okay with everything they've done on the PK though.
Yeah, and also sticking with the special teams, like talking about the power play, they got a nice power play goal on Saturday. Well, actually, a couple of nice power play goals on Thursday and Saturday. The one-timer from Giroux and a nice pass in the Boston game from JVR to Farabee. So I think that's still going to definitely be a work in progress. I would like to see Atkinson possibly on that first pairing, just because it gives the Flyers a shooting option. But I understand, because it's weird, because when I was watching that Saturday game from the arena, Claude Giroux, like, he originally on that first power play, he started on the right side. He switched. Yeah, then he eventually switched, and that's when he was able to get the one-timer for the goal. But then they basically, for the rest of the game, when they got power plays, Giroux was still on that right side. I think it was Couturier on the left, while Yandel was on the point, and I think it was Konechny that was in the middle, or he could have been. Yeah, because that's
been the main first unit they've used throughout really all of camp.
Yeah, then the second pairing, he was usually they're actually working 2 defensemen on that, but Ellis mans the point while Provorov plays the left side, and then you got the middle with Joel Farabee. Or actually, Farabee has been playing on the right side, maybe interchanging with the slot. And then has it been JVR that's playing the net front on that second unit, or was he playing on the first?
It's been JVR net front. There's been different options. Like there was one where Frost was in the slot, Farabee was on the left side, Provorov was on the right. And then, as you said, like Provorov at the point, Ellis was on the left side taking a one-timer. They've done that in a lot of different ways. And I'm sure it's not going to be the same throughout the season. Usually the second units, which is a lot. The first unit is the one unit that you want to keep it together. And obviously it's huge. And I think the Flyers want to keep using Yandel because I think one of the biggest here was obviously the room and two, the power play. I mean, it was a huge issue. Last year, obviously in the playoffs in 2019-20 and things like that. So,
especially on that during that first power play on Saturday, it was one of the main reasons why Drew even got the goal to begin with. Washington was trying to clear the zone, and then Yandel had this huge keep in, like what they were trying to slap it out of the zone, and he blocked it with his body.
Yeah, and then the play from York on the Farabee power play goal against the Bruins, a one-timer. York kept that puck in right off the glass. He made a couple of good plays. I mean, he didn't look great 5-on-5, but he had a good power play shift in the third, and I believe he got an assist on that play. I don't know if it's who passed it first, if it was either York or Frost to JVR over to Farabee, but either way, it was still a good setup and a good play, and obviously they scored on it. Tonight's going to be interesting too because the lines for tonight are different. They're similar because you still have some of the regulars. You have Farabee with Couturier and Konechny, Lindblom with Frost and Atkinson, JVR with Yanobay Cabell, which I talked about, and then Bunneman, Cates, and Willman. Defense, Provorov and Ellis, Yandel and Wiley, and then Hogeberg and Clendening, and the goaltenders are Hart and Nurse, and I would assume that Hart's playing the full game.
Yeah, that's what I would assume too. It hasn't really fully been announced yet. I would assume that's probably going to be more announced when you get closer towards the game. But I think this will be a game where Hart gets the full nod. And it'll probably be tomorrow because they play in Bridgeport to play the Islanders, and that's like something I was looking at the schedule too because like why isn't this game on TV? It probably explains because they're playing in the AHL arena in Bridgeport because technically the Islanders' home arena isn't set to open for a little bit. That's why they have so many road games to start the season. What was it, like 13 or 16 straight road games before they even play a home game once?
Yeah, the Islanders, I think, first home game is November 16th or something like that.
Oof, that's a very tough stretch to not play a home game for that long.
Yeah, it's their first 13 games are on the road. So we'll see how they do out of that. But I feel like the Islanders, their style doesn't necessarily matter if they're on the home or if they're at home or on the road. Like they play the same way. But obviously the Islanders, a team that has such a deep fan base like the Islanders, definitely benefited playing at home.
Yes.
So we'll see how that plays out. But I don't know. I mean, I just find it so weird that their schedule's like that. Like you couldn't just get the arena, rush it and get it done.
Yeah, I guess because everything that went with the pandemic and all the precautions, they had to delay most likely the construction. I would assume so at the least. Yeah, if I look at their schedule, starting in October, every road game to start the season, basically all their home games this year in preseason have been in Bridgeport. Yeah, they play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 road games in the month of October, and then they start the month of November.
They have to have a long home schedule at some point, right?
They have after this long road trip to start the season, they have a 4-game homestand, and then they go right back on the road. They have a lot of home games though in December, so that I guess makes up for it. They have a lot of home games in January, and then you have the Olympic break in February. They have a lot of home games in March, and it's basically making up for those home games. They have a lot of home games in December, a lot of home games in January, a lot in March, but then it's a mix in April. So basically that's making up for the lack of home games at the beginning of the year. So yeah, that's just like a weird schedule. But going back to tonight it's when you were talking about the lines for the Flyers, the Boston Bruins really, and that's basically every preseason game. Like when I was at the game on Saturday, there was a whole group of Washington fans in front of me, and the one guy was asking, "Oh, why are you why are you guys starting guys like Drew and everything? Like, do you really want to run the risk of injury? I'm just like, me and my father were explaining to him, it's preseason. That's what every team does. Your home games, you play the starters, so you can attract the fans at least. And then on the road games, you basically play the other group that's full of a bunch of rookies and AHL players. Maybe you have one or two of the main guys there, but not everyone. That's basically how everyone does it.
Right.
And that's what Boston, Boston's really only main guy that's in the lineup today. Maybe you can say Lazar and Wagner and Swayman, most likely going to be their starting goaltender this year.
Yeah, I mean, some of the guys are known guys from the Bruins roster. I mean, Frederick, Lazar, Wagner, Studnicka, probably Zboril, Clifton. That's probably about it. I mean, I should say Carson Coleman too. But that's really about it. I mean, a lot of these guys are younger guys, just AHL guys probably from Providence and stuff. And for the most part, I'd have to guess that. I mean, it kind of goes off what you said too. A lot of the teams have done that where they've had different lineups. But I think as you start to get towards the end of the preseason, that's when you start to get more of the NHL lineups. And one thing I will say too is like the Bruins, when they played the Flyers, had 3 legitimate NHL lines.
Yes,
they had which is just always so good. You had Foligno's line, and then I think Holla also was centering a line.
Yes.
So they had a bunch of different lines.
Yeah, I think the only big guy that was Pasternak not playing that game, because I know Marchand. He did. I didn't even notice him, even though he was on the power play. But yeah, when you're playing your 3 top lines, and I know people went crazy. Oh, the Flyers are going to be the same old Flyers. They lost to the Boston Bruins. The Flyers played an AHL caliber lineup. That's basically what it was. Besides like Thompson, and Scott Walton.
Yeah, that was Flyers. The last game the Bruins had. It was like tied in overtime, and it was 3-3. It was like in, just a normal play. And I don't know who was in net. Olmark was in net, and he went to play it, and it hit off Lafreniere, and he just smacked it into the empty net, like right in front of him. They won in overtime. It was like the biggest overtime I've ever seen. It was like the craziest thing. If I can pull it up, I don't know if I can share Zoom or something.
Wait, let me see. So it was during their game against the Rangers, right?
Yeah. Oh, I can share my screen. Okay, I gotta pull this up now because this is funny.
Oh god.
Because these are funny. Because you just don't expect it, and Lafreniere just pots it home. Amedeo, you might have to pull it up because my Wi-Fi is killer.
Yeah, let me do it. So it was in the overtime,
it's
right?
It's just the preseason highlights from the game the other night, and then just skip to the overtime.
Okay,
but man, it was funny. I was like, oh my god, that's hilarious.
Okay, so I got it pulled up right here. Let me share the tab from YouTube. So let me Chrome tab, YouTube. Let's go. Pull that up there. So let me let's see. Does it have the audio shared to it? I just want to make sure. Let me just do that in case. Share screen. Yep, share. There we go. Share system audio. Always got to make sure of that. Okay.
I had to bring this up. I don't know if some people saw it, but
what?
Like this clip.
Okay, so let me start playing it. Make sure it's not too loud. What we got?
Better. Strokes the puck to Linus Olmark. Olmark gives it away, and Lafreniere takes the gift.
What was the idea there?
Well, he had all the time in the world. What are you? Just play it off the wall, bro. It's not that hard.
Wait, I gotta get an instant replay of that. I gotta get an instant replay.
Center.
And the best part is they passed it back to him.
To Linus Olmark. Olmark gives it away, and Lafreniere takes the gift.
Lafreniere's even confused. What the hell just happened?
Yeah. I mean, seriously, that was the biggest bonehead play he could have made. That's
amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Yeah, exactly. From Mr. Twitzer saying that's a dang it. Yeah, that'll probably appear on Steve Dangle's dang it's eventually. And let's get into some of these comments here because we do have quite a bunch. And Mr. Twitzer, we're definitely going to get into this in a little bit. We almost made it to the season without some kind of drama. Lehner was like, nah. Yeah, we'll get to that. Tim is here. Hey, Tim, how you doing, man? Ristolainen brings out the attitude that Philadelphia desperately needs. Yeah, especially showcasing that in Saturday's game against the Capitals. So I'm definitely excited to see what he can do. I couldn't even, Mr. Twitzer says, I couldn't even tell you if Risto played well. I was too busy enjoying him drilling people. Yeah, we'll get into
the thing that just came out.
Yeah.
The Kraken have placed Carson Torensky on league-wide waivers.
What does that mean?
So Torensky got put on waivers.
Oh.
Yeah. That expansion draft is so confusing. Like, does that make any sense to you?
No, it doesn't.
Out of all the guys they could have taken from Philly, and they take Torensky, and then they put him on waivers in October.
We had a great prize in a guy like a Jake Voracek that you could have taken, but hey, if without Jake Voracek, we wouldn't have gotten Atkinson, so I'm perfectly fine with that. But good old, I don't even want to mention. I don't even know why they picked Torensky. That was just a stupid choice in the in the beginning. We also got Timmy saying that he loves the podcast, and thanks again for the follow on Twitter, Chris. He recently did a podcast with Samantha Weiser, so yeah. Thanks for the love for the podcast, Tim and Chris. I'm not sure if you're frozen right now, so I'm going to continue talking until you become unfrozen. That's the joy of the internet, people. Because Ed also joins in saying, "Hey, Chris, thanks for sending me the link to the video." And then Ed says, "Wi-Fi issues at Casa de Maher." Yep.
Yeah, he's right. You just went black for like 3 seconds.
So I went black, or was it you that were frozen?
Both went black. It was just the black loading thing.
Okay, so that wasn't for me. I didn't get that on my end, so it might have been just your freaking StreamYard resetting. That happened to me, like when my internet usually has the problems.
Yeah.
And then Timmy also responds to that clip of Ullmark in the goal. That was hilarious. Give that man $10,000, Homer Simpson. Yeah, Dave, we're going to talk about Robin Lehner stuff in a little bit. It's a very sensitive subject just because of how weird the situation it is. Mm-hmm. So, and then Will says $20 that Hart will pull something worse this season. Oh, man, you got to have more faith in Hart than that, dude.
I mean, we saw it in the first game last year that flicked the Crosby and he knocked it down.
Yeah.
Like, it's happened. I think there was another play. I don't know. It was Hart. Duclair took it off of him behind the net, and him and Ghost had to mess up, and Duclair scored on the wraparound.
I don't think anything's gonna top what Ullmark did. That was just
that was just like
he literally just gave it the left Frenier.
Yeah, I mean, he had all the time, and Hall literally pointed go that way, and he went up Hall's way, and they scored. So
good old hockey bloopers. So I guess the moment you all been waiting for, since we're looking forward to tonight's game against the Boston Bruins, I wonder if they elect to do another shootout, just because it was just like I was at the game on Saturday and just watching the shootout. I'm just like, okay, it's gonna be one of these shootouts where no one scores for the first 3 rounds, and then 2 people score in the same round, and then it's basically how every shootout goes. No one scores, and then 1 round everyone scores. No one scores for another 6 or 7, and then 1 person scores to win the game. That's basically how it works, and that's what happened with the Flyers and the Capitals. So I don't know. Maybe we can get a better shootout performance than just Scott Laughton scoring. No, actually, it wasn't Laughton. It was Frost that scored. That in the Capitals. Who scored for the Flyers in the Boston game? Did anyone score, or was it just
scored 2 goals?
No, the shootout. No, the shootout.
Oh, the shootout.
I don't think anyone did.
No one.
Okay. And speaking of, before we get into
the only goal was DeBrusk.
Yeah, and speaking of the only, before we get into the Lehner discussion, I want to get your thoughts on Morgan Frost during his, I guess, preseason.
I can talk about that now.
Yeah, his preseason, because I know some people are definitely not going to be like, oh, Frost, he's not doing anything flashy or anything like that. But I think the game against the Capitals, like silently, he had one of his better games of the preseason, because yes, he did struggle a little bit against the Bruins because he's one of the better players going up against everyone in the Bruins lineup. So yeah, there's going to be some struggles there, but he definitely played a lot better against Washington. So I want to get your thoughts on Frost's preseason so far.
In the Boston game, he was just non-existent. Like he was just so invisible. There really wasn't much that he was bringing to the table. The Capitals game, I noticed him a lot, and I brought him up in my game review a good amount because I noticed him, and I said, like, I want to make sure I have this down, that I noticed him in this certain player. A lot of the camp, everyone talked about was Frost looks bigger. He's bigger. You know, he got bigger and everything. He gained some weight and muscle and all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, that's good. We'll see how he does when he actually has to play a game and show that he did that. Boston game, he didn't show that at all. He wasn't really necessarily physical. The game against Washington, he made some good plays along the wall, made some good defensive plays. He did make a couple good plays where he set up Farabee in tight. He had a really nice play early in the first period where he kind of cut off the wall and sent it in front of Farabee, but he got hit by it was Hathaway at the side of the net. He couldn't get a shot off. There was one play, I think it was Scarbosa for the Capitals. He had the puck along the wall, and Forrest kind of came in and just went away at him. Now the Caps still had the puck and cycled it and everything. But from there, those are the things that I want to see from Ross. I just want to see him get engaged in the defensive zone and the offensive zone. Obviously, he has the skill, and there also was another play in that game where the Flyers kind of dumped it in. The Caps were kind of coming out. Hathaway was bringing it out. And Frost kind of started like getting at him and stick lifting him, and he got one stick lift in. Hathaway still had the puck, but threw out the wall, and Yandel read it really well and kept it alive, dropped it down to Farabee, and he had a shot on net, which was a save by Samsonov. And it was, sent out and cleared back up the other way. But again, those are the things that I want to see from Frost, just the little things. I just want to see the little things that turn into the big things, where he makes a certain play that turns into a goal or whatever, or just even a scoring chance. So I think overall he had a lot better game, and I'm curious to see how he plays tonight and if he can continue that playing on that line with Farabee and who's he playing with again? Frost, Atkinson, and Lindblom.
Yeah. Yes, he's playing with Atkinson and Lindblom.
Frost, Atkinson. Sorry about that. Yeah. So we'll see how he does.
Yeah, definitely. This is because with the Kevin Hayes injury, he's definitely getting a better look into making the opening night roster, because maybe he would have been a guy that started in the AHL probably if Hayes was healthy, but he's getting a good showcase, and hopefully he can make the best of it, and especially just improve on that tonight against Boston. So we'll definitely see there. And also, Timmy had a question about who are the Phantoms goalies this year. I think it's looking like right now it's going to be Sandstrom and Ersson, and then Ustamenko might be the third string guy down there. Maybe he plays in the ECHL for Reading. So that's what I'm assuming it's going to be. I think Sandstrom is most likely going to be the first guy called up for everything, like just in case like if Hart gets injured or Jones gets injured. I think Sandstrom is the first guy they're going to call up. So I think that's the situation there with the goaltending down in Lehigh Valley. So the topic that I know everyone's basically been talking about for the past couple of days, because this really started like not with the Flyer situation. It started mainly, I would say, on October 1st, going into October 2nd, because Robin Lehner, we all know basically what he's been talking about now, but it's mainly been starting with the Jack Eichel situation, just because Buffalo, them stripping him of the captaincy because he wants to get the surgery. Buffalo doesn't want him to. It's been that situation the entire offseason. So he's basically been going on a tangent since, I would say, that Saturday afternoon with the Jack Eichel situation. And then he started posting about stuff, how the Sabres treated him when he had an injury, forcing him to take the medication that wasn't prescribed, or it was just unknown. So basically team doctors were giving him unknown medicine that he was forced to take. So, and he said he almost died because of it. So it's a lot of, it's like a really deep situation. It's very weird to talk about as well. And then he started bringing up, because is it common for the workplaces in the NHL to give out all of these unprescribed medication and everything? Then he came with a comment asking about, or like bringing out Alain Vigneault, how he's saying he's a dinosaur coach treating his players like robots and not humans. And he's coming out for Vigneault to be fired. And he says he has proof, but he really hasn't showcased that proof yet, which is weird. And then he went on talking about the sleeping pills that he was forced to be taking, and like I guess a bunch of other players that have been forced to be taking sleeping pills. So it's a weird situation, because he says he has proof, but he never really talked about the proof in that. And the one thing that did bother me about that, because he says he has proof, but he's not showcasing the proof, in that when you're given these like really direct accusations and you're not backing them up because you say he wants to talk to the NHL about this. So it's going to lead people to assume and just basically assumption everything. So when he brought up Alain Vigneault, and he said he had proof, but he never revealed what the proof was. Everyone automatically, the first thing they went to was, okay, Nolan Patrick is now with the Vegas Golden Knights. He was traded from the Flyers to Nashville, then eventually traded to Vegas. So everyone was assuming that, okay, Nolan Patrick might be this player that's given Robin Lehner the information, but then eventually someone posted about that, which eventually was taken down this afternoon. And then Lehner, I think, commented on that as well, saying that that is BS, and he has right now no connections with Nolan Patrick because he's barely talked to him. So I guess that speculation is thrown into the toilet, but he's still saying he has his information. And then he backtracked on the Alain Vigneault comment, saying he wasn't specifically talking about the medications with Vigneault. He was basically specifically talking about he was treating his players like robots instead of human beings, and he thinks that's the main issue with Vigneault, and that's why he should be fired. And then the Flyers, they had to make their statement on it. Chuck Fletcher did. Alain Vigneault talked about that today as well. So it's a very, very weird situation. And yeah, Mr. Twitzer says right now he just doesn't have a high thought of Alain Vigneault. And there was a lot of people were also mentioning that because he recently had a Spit and Chicklets interview, and people were trying to connect that to the Flyers somehow because they were talking about during I think it was the 2018 offseason, the 2018-19, when he was before he signed with the Islanders, and that he met with one team before he went to the Islanders, and that he's at the front office, the GM, everything was fine, but the coach treated him like absolute shit. So that's one of the reasons why, and people were trying to speculate that could be the Flyers, even though Alain Vigneault at the time wasn't a head coach on any team, and it was still Hackstall and Hextall in the Flyers organization. So I don't know where that connection is coming from. So it's a very weird, touchy subject, and I know Robin Lehner, he's definitely been open about his bipolar disorder, and I applaud him for it. He's been doing a wonderful job trying to bring awareness to that in the National Hockey League, but it's just a weird, touchy situation. And Chris, I know like you definitely have some thoughts on this, even though it's a hard subject to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not going to go too into detail, but I think for the most part, if something like this is being brought up, then I think it has to be he's definitely trying to get the league to say something. I think obviously the league's going to interview him, and obviously we saw a tweet from Elliot Friedman that the league's going to interview Lehner and things like that. He did say in a tweet that it wasn't Patrick and that he doesn't necessarily know Patrick. But then again, then why would you say that AV had an issue with, if you're saying AV had an issue with the way the players are treated and things like that, then don't necessarily say that you don't know someone that was just, you know what I mean? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to say you don't know Patrick, but then you're going to make it like that Vigneault did something wrong. And I mean, who else would, you know what I mean? I mean, who else would say something about this whole thing that was related to the, it would have to be Patrick. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to sit here and try to figure out what it is, because frankly, I'm sure it's going to be coming out soon enough. And I don't know what goes on in that locker room, nor any NHL locker room. Amedeo, you don't either. And if you have, you know, if you've heard stuff, then that's fine, whatever. But I'm not going to make it like I do. So I think overall, for the most part, it's a very odd situation, and I think we're just going to have to wait and see how it gets handled.
Yeah, because Emily Kaplan of ESPN and posted this afternoon as well that Robin Lehner clarifies he was never accusing Vigneault of distributing pills to players. His claim was about the way he treats the players, which he believes to be unacceptable, which is a fine accusation. And then Lehner, he had a good call with the NHLPA yesterday, so there's definitely going to be some type of story that comes out this week. So we're basically just playing the waiting game with the Robin Lehner situation at this point, because it was just a weird way that he put it on Twitter, because it was one tweet that was talking about,
it was like one tweet, and there was like threads of other tweets.
Yeah, it was like one of the threads.
It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah, one of the threads was talking about the pill distribution, and then the one tweet under it was talking about the Flyers and Alain Vigneault. So we're like, everyone thought the connection there was, wait, is Alain Vigneault distributing pills? What the hell's going on? It's just like that's a really criminal accusation that you're putting on Alain Vigneault, and that's going to lead a lot of people to speculate something. So, yeah, there was definitely some miscommunication there. And, yeah, we don't know what goes on behind the NHL locker room. So we can't give we can't say that we know this. We can't say, we can't give a proper opinion on it because we don't know what goes on behind there. Is Alain Vigneault treating his players? We have no idea. The only thing we get to see from Alain Vigneault is during his press conferences and how he portrays himself there. So we don't really know. But I'm not going to sit here and just assume. I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to wait for the facts to happen and wait for that to come out and wait for it to play itself out like it does. So that's all we can do at this point. We can't just keep speculating on what's going to happen. But it's definitely, I know like something like with the pill distribution, that I feel like that's something that's very common throughout all sports. And that's a big issue that definitely does need to be looked into. And I know with the NHL, they do have problems when they do wrap stuff under the rug, especially with the Blackhawks situation. That was just a terrible thing. So hopefully this is something that they don't try to wrap under the rug, but it's just, yeah, it's just a hard thing. So I guess to get off that topic, because it's just a hard topic to talk about. And we got a comment here from Jacob talking about Ellis taking the A away from Provorov. Does Provorov keep it? I would assume, because most of the preseason games I've seen Provorov wear the A at this point. So I'm assuming he's going to be the alternate captain. So we got to I think Provorov most likely just going to be that guy. And I think I just got a message from Chris, so he stepped out for a couple of seconds. So yeah, he's having more technical issues. So I think we are at a good time to end the podcast right now. So thank you everyone for joining this edition of the Flyered Up podcast. And if you were late to the podcast, if you haven't been able to join, definitely go give us a follow on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts at. Definitely go check out the Painted Lines wherever they are. Subscribe to them on YouTube. Check them out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or whenever you can get into Instagram or Facebook until they come back up. And also, don't forget to follow us on our different, mine and Chris's YouTube pages, Twitter pages, Instagram pages. For my YouTube, it's TTP Sports. For Chris's, it's Flyers Fan Mania 93. My Twitter is Amedeo Grassia 98. And for Chris, it's _Chris Maher. So, thank you, everyone, for joining us at the Flyered Up podcast. Let's hope the Flyers get a victory in tonight's preseason game over the Boston Bruins, and we will talk to you next time.